The Toppel Career Center at the University of Miami wants to help you become well prepared to handle any interview that comes your way. So during this 30-minute workshop, we are going to work with you on interviewing skills. You will learn strategies and tips that will help you nail the interview, including how to dress, how to show you are a good fit for any job or graduate program, and how to follow up after an interview has ended. We'll make sure to also let you know what resources are available to you through Toppel to further help you prepare. So let's get started. So why don't you tell me about yourself? Have you ever encountered this tricky interview question before? It's pretty common you'll be asked to tell more about yourself in any interview you encounter. You'll also probably be asked to talk about yourself when you're networking and meeting new people. Being able to give people a snapshot of who you are in this answer is not as tough as you think, and an effective answer to this question can truly set the tone of the interview and lead where it will go. All you have to do is follow a simple formula. When asked to tell about yourself, you will want to add 3 components for an ideal answer: present, past, and future. You want to start with the present. Where are you right now? That could include your year in school and what you are majoring in. It could mean your current job or internship. It might include current leadership roles and volunteer work. Think about 1 to 2 things you want the interviewer to focus on. Next, talk about your past. What relevant experiences have you had? What skills have you gained from these experiences? How have you prepared yourself for this new role? Finally, focus on your future. Why are you excited for this opportunity that you are interviewing for? This could include talking about your goals, your passions, and what you want to learn and gain. Remember that the topics you bring up in this answer should not only be relevant. This is not the time to talk about your pet dog or that you are one of 3 siblings, unless those details are an important component of what you are interviewing for. But they should also be areas you hope to go deeper into with the interviewer for later on. So let's talk about time. How long do you think this answer should be? During the interview, it is recommended to keep this answer short and sweet, between 60 to 90 seconds. Do you think you can do that? Why don't we try it out? I'm going to give you exactly 60 seconds to tell me about yourself. Remember, start with the present, go back into the past, and then describe your future. If you are about to interview for something in particular, pretend that you are interviewing for that role right now. If you are not interviewing, pick any possible goal you've been thinking about. Maybe it's a job with Google. Maybe it's law school. All right, are you ready? Get set, go. All right, stop. What do you think about that time? Too short? Too long? 60 to 90 seconds should be the goal for this answer, because if you're under that, you're probably not providing enough detail about who you are and how you fit with this new role. If you're over, you're probably telling way too much in the beginning. After 90 seconds, people can start to zone out, and you obviously don't want to bore people, yet wow them during the interview. Now let's backtrack and talk about why you're stuck preparing for this interview anyway. Why is it necessary, considering you might have a stellar resume that highlights your skills and accomplishments? The purpose of an interview is to see which candidate is the best fit for a job, internship, or academic program. Remember, you're likely not the only person applying for an open position, and further, you probably have a lot of the same qualifications as many of the other applicants. That study abroad experience in Italy that you had, well, someone else may have done something similar in France. That amazing internship that you had with Coca-Cola, well, someone else could have done something very similar at Pepsi. So the interview is a chance to see who really is the best fit and gives you the opportunity to set yourself apart from the rest. The interview is one of the best ways that you have to make yourself stand out and make yourself more than that piece of paper we call a resume. So let's figure out how to rock the interview. An interview can be broken up into 3 stages: before, during, and after. Many people focus only on the during the interview component, but ignoring the pre and post work of an interview can be very detrimental to your success. So to start off, we're going to talk about how to prepare before the interview. One of the main reasons that people do not get hired or accepted into jobs or graduate programs is that they did not do enough research before going to the interview. I can think of countless times when I've asked a candidate during an interview what they think we do or what stands out the most for them, and their answer is very superficial or just based on assumption. As an interviewer, I want to know that you're extremely interested in working for my organization, and the best way that can be done is through research. You want to know detailed information about the company, organization, or academic program you're interviewing for. And how can you do that? Well, the internet will be one of your greatest resources here. You should take notes of interest from the organization's website on things that stand out to you: their mission, their vision, their culture and values, what they're doing in the community, the projects they are working on, and their major accomplishments. You should also know who their competitors and stakeholders are. The organizational website is full of ideas and keywords that you can go back to during the interview. As an example, let's take a look at our Career Center website. All right, here we go. Already on this page, you can see our mission, our vision, and our guiding framework at the top. Perhaps you can pick up on some of the key words that are here that give you an idea of who we are, such as empower, connect, and world. Maybe on the right-hand side of this page, you notice all the social media icons and realize how passionate we are about using social media to communicate with others and share our story. These are just a few examples of things you could talk about during an interview. All right, well, don't just stop at an organization's website, though. I guarantee that you might be able to find more useful information on them than by searching what's written about them in the media. The next thing to do is research the job description if you have one for the position. During an interview, you want to prove that you can do or learn to do everything that the job entails, and this is not an easy task if you're unfamiliar with what the job posting actually says. Study these postings clearly and jot notes about areas of importance, areas you're strong in, areas you are excited about, and areas that may be perceived as weaknesses. For example, a job posting wants you to have a certain skill, which you're still currently learning and not an expert in yet. You may very easily be asked questions directly from the job description, such as which area of the job will you be the best at, and which area you might struggle with the most. Further, many questions you will be asked will probably be based upon the job description. For example, a description might say that they're looking for someone who is highly creative. In that case, prepare yourself to answer questions related to your creativity. We'll talk more about this later. Finally, know the trends in your field. Whatever industry you're going into, you should know something about its history, what's happening today, and the challenges it faces. Even if you aren't asked a direct question about your field, this research can help you to be more knowledgeable in any other conversations that you have with your interviewers. Read the news, blogs, research, or professional association websites about your field to stay in the know. Your research does not stop on the outside. Now you need to take the time to think about you. The goal again of an interview is for you to show a fit between yourself and the organization. Only by being able to talk about yourself effectively can you do this. To start with, think about your strengths and skills. What are you good at, and how can you make that fit to the role you are applying for? Think about your past experiences you've had, the classes you've taken, the jobs you've had, the lessons you've learned. How does all this fit with the new role? Next, think about what you need to improve upon. This can also be called your weaknesses. Many hate the dreaded "what is your weakness" question, but you'll probably be asked about it, so you should have an answer. The worst thing you can do here is say that you have not thought about it or that you have no weaknesses, because that would imply that you're either a perfect person, which is impossible, or that you don't focus on self-improvement, a huge red flag during an interview. The next worst thing to do here is to give a cliche answer, such as being a perfectionist or a workaholic. Employers know you're avoiding the answer there. And lastly, don't choose a weakness that is integral for getting the job done. For example, don't say that you have trouble teaching to different learning styles if you're applying for a job teaching multiple children. Finally, think about what makes you unique. Perhaps from any other candidate applying, did you have any interesting opportunities or experiences in your life that you think are really cool? Tell a story that connects why this unique experience or trait will make you successful. It can't be said enough. Practice, practice, practice. There are so many ways to do so, and Toppel can help you out. Why is practicing crucial? First of all, if you have any distracting or nervous habits, such as saying itching your forehead, or cracking your knuckles, you can pick up on it early before annoying your interviewer. Practicing also allows you to perfect your answers to questions you know you will hear or will most likely hear, such as, what are your greatest strengths, and why do you want to work for our company? Imagine how confident you can sound when you already know your answer rather than with coming up with the answer on the spot. This in turn makes the interviewer more confident in you. You want answers to roll right off of your tongue. You can also practice in many different ways. You can start out by writing out your interview answers. As research has shown, doing so better commits what you want to say to memory. You can also practice aloud in front of your mirror, to a friend, a relative, your pet, whoever. Ask these others for their feedback. Finally, you can practice at the Toppel Career Center. Here you can make an appointment for a practice interview with an advisor, which will take place in one of our interview suites, which can be seen in the picture here. We will interview you for anything that you're preparing for. We'll spend the first half of the session asking you questions, and the second half of the session will go over feedback on how you did. Better yet, we're able to record the entire interview for you so that later on you can watch yourself. That might sound scary, but think how informative and helpful it can be to hear the answers you provided and assess if they are at the high level they need to be at for the interview. I will talk about how to make these appointments later. Now we're going to talk about what happens during the interview. Before we start with this, let's talk a little bit about your attitude. Sometimes during an interview, we let nerves get in the way. We fidget, we forget to smile, and we don't act like our natural selves. One thing that we think you should remember to keep in mind before those nerves kick in is that if you are asked to an interview, the organization believes you're qualified. Otherwise, you would not be there. At this point, they're mostly assessing your fit for the organization and the role, which, as we talked about before, is very much in your control if you've done some prep work. First impression is everything during an interview, and one way that you can create the best possible first impression is through professional dress. Take a look at our business professional guide, which you can see is required for all of our career fairs and interviews on campus. Dressing professionally sets a tone that you are a professional, which is crucial as you go from student to employee. You can see from this image that suits are necessary for both men and women. Shoulders and knees should be covered if you're a woman, and both men and women should wear polished, closed-toed dress shoes. Although your clothing is a great way to convey your personality and your style, remember that when you are in an interview situation, you do not want to distract from your accomplishments. Thus, stay away from casual pieces, too much jewelry or makeup, and anything flashy or over the top. The best words of advice that I can give you are keep it simple and classy. Now let's move on to the interview questions themselves, the area that most people want to know more about. I'm going to talk to you about 4 different types of interview questions that you may be asked so that you can better prepare. Some of the easiest interview questions you will receive are resume-related interview questions. These questions come directly from your resume, such as, tell me more about your internship at, I see you were the president of your sorority. What was that like? Essentially, anything that you put on your resume is fair game for an interviewer to ask about. With that being said, make sure that you can talk articulately about everything you put on your resume. No space fillers. The next type of question that you may face is a behavioral-based interview question. These are questions that typically start with the words, tell me about a time you worked on a team, failed at something, had a conflict with another person. Why do you think that these are asked? Well, because your past behavior in those scenarios predicts your future performance in similar scenarios. Whenever faced with this type of question, your strategy is to provide the interviewer with a vivid story, which we'll talk more about on the next slide. Next, you may face a case study. These are hypothetical problem situations that the interviewer wants you to solve. These questions are commonly used to assess your ability to assess a problem and focus on what is most important. You can encounter a case study in any field. With this type of scenario, you want to identify the most important issues to address, show your ability to analyze the situation, create a plan to address the problem, and make recommendations. In these answers, don't worry if you don't have the correct answer, because your process for getting there is usually much more important. Finally, you may be asked brain teasers or logic problems. These can be asked of you to test your ability to think quickly, logically, and creatively. These are probably the least common type of question you may encounter. Like a case study, the correct answer is not important here, as interviewers want to see how you solve problems, think on your feet, and use creativity and analyzation. Remember to walk through your thought process aloud. As I mentioned before, it is important to tell a story when answering a behavioral-based interview question. And how can you tell an effective story? By using a STAR technique. The STAR technique provides a structure for telling the story for the behavioral-based interview question. First, you will use the S, which stands for situation. When asked to describe your behavior in a past scenario, you start by providing some context and setting the scene. Where were you? When did this happen? Who was involved? Next, you move into T for task, which refers to which task you need to solve. What challenge were you facing, and what needed to be done and why? Next, you want to talk about A, or action. What action did you take? How did you do it, and why? Finally, end your answer by telling the interview the R, which stands for results. What did you accomplish? What did you learn? Practice this structure each time that you prepare for an interview to ensure you're speaking articulately and confidently about your past experiences. I want to talk now a little bit regarding verbal versus nonverbal communication. We just talked about spoken words, the answers to the questions you're asked. But as you can see from this graph, they are not what makes the most impact on your impression to interviewers. Instead, it is your tone of voice and nonverbal communication that are really the most important. Here are some tips to improve your nonverbal communication. To start, firmly shake everyone you meet's hands during the interview when you greet them as a sign of respect. When you sit down, make sure to display great posture. Sit up straight, don't lean on the armrest, and don't lean on the back of the chair. If you are in a chair that moves, beware. You'd be surprised by how many people interview in a moving chair and turn from side to side the entire time, which is very distracting. Eye contact is crucial too and shows confidence and respect. Remember to be natural. You don't want to be a brick the entire interview, but you also don't want to display any distracting nonverbal behaviors either. That can include tapping, playing with your hair, touching your mouth, and moving your hands way too much. These types of things can be easily found when you practice in front of someone. Finally, I want to give a few helpful tips and reminders that I think everyone preparing for an interview should know. First, remember to arrive early and be polite to everyone you come into contact with. Early means 10 to 15 minutes. If you are even a minute late to an interview, it sets a horrible tone that you really don't care much about the interviewer's time, even if you do care. But you got stuck in a horrible traffic situation, perhaps. I usually drive to interview locations way earlier than I need to be there and sit in my car while practicing answers and reviewing information. That way, I know nothing can get in my way. I wouldn't suggest going into the interviewer's location any earlier than about 10 to 15 minutes though, because it can be awkward for you to be just sitting there and waiting for so long, especially if they're interviewing other candidates on that day as well. About being polite, that needs to be polite to the entire staff, as well as any customers or clients that are present. Be friendly to all, whether it be an intern, the receptionist, or the CEO. As I mentioned earlier, the first impression is crucial. A great handshake is part of that. It is also important to show that you are engaged during the interview. You want to show you're excited to be there and enthusiastic and passionate about the organization and the role. It can lead the interviewers to be more excited about you when you display this attitude. I must repeat this again. Know how to talk about your areas for professional improvement without seeming negative. If you failed at something or had a conflict with someone or have a weakness that you're working on, always remember that we want to hear what steps you have taken already to bounce back and learn from the negative. Also, never throw blame on other people during the interview, even if you really did have a horrible boss that calls you at all hours of the day, or even if the teammate really wasn't contributing to the project. Focus on you. Next, ask questions. Typically at the end of most interviews, you will be asked if you have any questions for the interviewers. Always say yes. Asking questions helps to show your interest and you can learn more about the company. Make sure your questions are relevant and personal to you and what you care about. Please do not ask them anything that has been clearly stated to you or could easily be found on their website. Finally, be articulate when describing how and why you are the best fit. This happens with preparation of multiple reasons that you fit the role and the organization. Now we've made it to the end. You are finished with the interview, but the work is not done yet in making a positive impression and lasting impact. First of all, send a thank you note to everyone who interviews you. A thank you note is a sign of gratitude, and it is a real possibility that you may not get hired for a job when you've had a good interview for forgetting this easy task. It is much better to individualize each thank you rather than grouping people together because you can personalize the thank you. To personalize the thank you, mention something specific that occurred in your interaction with that person. Maybe they gave you a good tip, or took you to lunch, or showed you a tour of the building. Taking notes during the interview can help you remember who did or said what. Of course, you also want to show your interest in the position and highlight a final time why you're a good fit. A thank you note should only be a few sentences long. Keep it short and sweet. It is also okay to send these by mail or email, but make sure they're received within 48 hours by the interviewers. We have sample thank you letters on our website, hirearcane.com, if you need help learning how to write them. Next, consider following up with an organization after an interview in order to continue showing your interest. I've heard countless stories from individuals who were told after being hired that the fact they followed up after the interview to ask about the status of the position and again state why you are excited about the possible opportunity was what secured them the role. Why? Because it showed that they were dedicated and actually cared. If you choose to follow up, be mindful of timing. If the interviewer says that they will get back to you on a certain date, wait until that date has passed to follow up. If no dates are given, wait to follow up about 2 weeks later. When you follow up, remember to be positive and non-intrusive. It's okay to say, I'm wondering if a decision has been made regarding the position, but it's not okay to say, it's been 2 weeks and I haven't heard anything yet. What's the status of this? Finally, we have made it to the end. How can Toppel help as you prepare to tackle the interview process? You can always come to Walk-In Advising Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Here we review resumes, cover letters, personal statements, and other career-related documents and can get you started on utilizing our career resources. You can also sign up for a practice interview with a career advisor for an hour-long interview. These are by appointment only. Sometimes you may find out about an interview at the last second and need some quick prep beforehand. If that's your case, come to Walk-In Advising for a mini practice interview where we will make sure that you are ready to go for the real thing. We hope that you stop by our office, which is located at 5225 Ponce de Leon Boulevard. But you can also stay in touch with the contact information on this slide, toppel@miami.edu, or our number, 305-284-5451. We wish you the best of luck for all of your interviews ahead.